Having straightened up and settling in, bring awareness to your body. Notice what it's like for you to be in your body right now. Focus space for this exercise is anything that's present in your body. If you find yourself pulled to any mental activity, gently return your awareness back to your body. Noticing any physical, emotional, or other sensations that might be present for you right now in your body. Feel your body from moment to moment. Noticing what that's like for you. Perhaps your body is pleasant or unpleasant or neutral in different parts of your body. Perhaps you're warm or cold, energetic or slow. Simply notice what it's like for you to be in your body right now. Any and all body sensations are fair game for this technique. Simply notice what's present for you. Feel your body from moment to moment. Use this technique of body awareness to become curious about what it's like for you to be in your body right now. Excellent work, everyone. Nice job feeling your body. It's very helpful for meditation practice to feel your body, and we got some good practice in doing that just now. So, this event is put on by OAK, the center of our organization in California. We're very happy to be with you today, be practicing with you and sharing in community. Before the talk, we'll have a chance to introduce ourselves, and each person here physically in the room, and then also you, our friends joining us online, will have a chance to introduce yourself, say your name, and also answer the following question, which is, why do you practice mindfulness? Please keep your answers brief, just because there's a lot of people here today, but we'll answer the question, why do you practice mindfulness? So, I'm Tasshin, and I am grateful to mindfulness, and I practice it so that I can be happier.
Hi everyone, I'm Diana. Lovely to see y'all. I practice mindfulness because I feel that there's a lot of harm going on in the world, and I believe we need large-scale behavior change, and I want to start from myself. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Alice. I practice mindfulness because it matters to me a lot that I'm doing real good and that's truly beneficial, and mindfulness helps me make sure I do the best that I can. Thank you.
And can we next have, is Renee here and Maria after that?
Hi, I'm Renee, and I practice mindfulness because I spent a lot of time not practicing mindfulness, and I know the difference.
Maria, are you still here?
I probably can't hear you. Could Maria go next?
Okay, can we have Stanley next one?
Stanley, I'm Tashin's father. It sounds less pretentious than special guest star. I practice mindfulness to reduce stress and anxiety.
Thank you, Stanley. Margaret.
My mic. Hi, I'm Margaret in Vermont, and I practice mindfulness for self-preservation and to bring more compassion and equanimity to the world around me. It's nice to see you.
It's Christine. Christine, thanks. Can we have Christine next? I think you're still muted. Can we have Pam next? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Pam from Los Angeles area, and I'm in the middle of a retreat right now that happens to have a break for the next 2 hours. And it's mindfulness with eating. And one of the big reasons I practice mindfulness is to reduce the suffering that I have with eating disorders.
Thank you. Can we have Richard now?
Hi, I'm sorry, Rich? Okay, hi everyone, Rich in Ohio, just back from Vermont. And I practice mindfulness because it keeps me centered.
Thanks, Rich. Can we have Bob and Lynn next?
Hello, I'm Lynn.
And Bob.
And Bob. I practice mindfulness to slow myself down so I can be a better observer to myself and to others.
And I practice in order to experience quiet.
Thank you. Eric?
Hi, I'm Gergely from San Francisco, and I practice mindfulness because it brings me clarity on what is good.
Anya? Alia? Thank you. Seems like there's a screen preview.
California.
We are hearing you in and out, so maybe let's.
Can you hear me? I think I might be
Okay, I
disconnected.
can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, well, hello everyone. I'm Elliot, and I practice mindfulness to be slightly less crazy.
Thank you, Elliot. And can we have Kohler next?
Hey there, I'm Colin. I practice mindfulness to work towards the end of suffering and the enabling of flourishing for many beings as possible.
Thank you. And we could circle back to Christine and Evangelio. I'm sorry, or Christine and Maria, if they're here. I'll pass it over back to you.
Well, wonderful answers, everyone. It's a variety of reasons that people practice, and good news, you can have all of these benefits and more. Everyone can have all of these benefits regardless of what your motivation is. So you can see what's on offer. There's a lot on offer from this practice. So for the past few weeks, we've been discussing the various numbered lists in Buddhism. This is a tool that the Buddha used to teach us his teachings. Lots of numbered lists. We've gone through a fraction of them, just a few of them, maybe 8 or 9 of them, and there are a lot more. There are a lot of numbered lists, and you can go and look for them. I was pleased to see earlier this week that Colin and I are both on Twitter, and Colin had found a friend of mine, Lee Brasington's website, and on Lee's website he has a list of the many numbered lists in Buddhism, and it's not a complete list, it's sort of a greatest hits. So you can look for that after in case you're dying for more lists, you're just can't get enough of these numbered lists that we've been going over, you really want more. It's really a helpful way to access what Buddhism is all about. Sort of cuts right to the center, seeing these different numbered lists and learning what they're all about, and then that gives you a context for reading particular sutras or receiving different teachings or trying different techniques. Gives you a sense what this is all about. And as many of you said, a major reason to do this practice is that there is suffering. We have suffering in our own lives, in our own minds and worlds, and there's also suffering outside of us. And we see clearly that that's not working. We don't want to suffer. When we encounter suffering, we, by necessity, see this is not acceptable. I don't want this. No one should have this, in fact. If it's my suffering, it should end. If it's other people's suffering, it should end. And so this is why we take up a spiritual practice like meditation. It's a major reason. We want to end suffering. It's not the only reason, of course, but it's a major theme, shall we say. So what is this suffering? Well, it has a cause, which we've discussed in the past, which is sometimes translated as craving. But this craving can manifest in many forms, and that brings us to the 3 poisons, which we'll be discussing today. These are 3 forms of suffering that take place in our mind and perpetuate suffering. They perpetuate suffering in our own lives, and they perpetuate suffering outside of our own minds. Not just in our lives, but in the world at large. So what are these 3 poisons? The 3 poisons are greed, hatred, and ignorance, or delusion. Greed and hatred are pretty straightforward. You're probably familiar with them. People want things, desire things, and will go to excessive lengths to fulfill their desires, even if it hurts themselves or others. And hatred is, of course, related to anger. We can hate others, we can hate ourselves, we can hate the world. Both of these are poisonous to us. It's poisonous to have greed in our mind, and it's poisonous to have hatred in our mind. What is this 3rd point? 3rd point is delusion or ignorance. This is the claim that we may or may not understand things as they are. We may or may not be encountering reality, seeing reality clearly, and that is itself a kind of suffering. When we mistake what's happening with ourselves or others or the world, that's confusion, that's delusion, that's ignorance. If you perceive something incorrectly, it will lead you to behave incorrectly, even if you didn't intend to. If you misunderstand something, make an assumption, if you see things in a way that they are not truly manifesting in the world, then you will, by necessity, act incorrectly. I was trying to think of an example of this earlier, and I think a really good example, as a very simple one, is something that happens to me frequently, which is if you're walking downstairs and you misjudge how many stairs there are, you think that there's one too few or one too many, you can sort of stumble, right? You can step down on the bottom one thinking that there's an extra stair, or you can not know that there's an extra step and think that you're on level ground when you're not yet there. And sometimes, steps, depending on where you are sort of uneven, so they're not evenly spaced, and you might place your foot incorrectly. And that's because you're seeing things incorrectly. You aren't paying attention to what's happening with the stairs. You're not mindful of the stairs as you walk, and then you behave incorrectly, inappropriately for that situation. You step in a way that causes you to hurt your body even, or just lose balance or something like that. And so this is what delusion is like, not just with walking down the stairs, but as we go about our whole lives. We can have this kind of misjudgment about what's happening that leads to incorrect action with anything. And that is also suffering. So these are the 3 major poisons, the 3 poisons: greed, hatred, and ignorance. And the claim is that they are in fact poisonous for us, that they're harmful to us. Of course, our first-person experience may not be that they're harmful. We may be experiencing greed or hatred or delusion and think that it's helping us. We may think, oh, it'll just really resolve this situation if I long and desire for more money, for example. That will really solve my problems if I just spend all of my efforts longing for more money. Maybe then I'll get my life in order. It can seem like a solution. Of course, money isn't the only thing that we can be having this greed for, but it's a simple example to use. There are other things that we can desire in a greedy way. And the same is true for hate. We can think, oh, there's this problem in my life, and it will just really help resolve it if I have anger, if I am hateful towards others. Then they'll understand, then they'll listen to me. Then the world will be better if I just have enough hate. It sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, and yet we fall into this trap all of the time. We get confused. We think hatred helps when in fact hatred hurts. It hurts ourselves and it hurts others. Anger, it's the same way. We think it might help, but it doesn't. It just hurts us. It stings us, bites back. And the same is true for delusion. We may think we're seeing clearly. Sometimes when we're very insistent that we're seeing things clearly, that's when we're most mistaken about how things really are. We're just adamant. I know I'm right, you're wrong, this is correct. You're absolutely wrong, and then it turns out actually we were the ones that were wrong the whole time. We assumed something or missed something, and we were deluded. It doesn't need to be interpersonal, of course. It can just be even within our own minds. We can be deluded within our own minds, seeing things in a way that's not true. We can be absolutely certain that we're right and in fact be wrong. This is a common human experience, and it goes all the way down to the fundamental aspects of perception. We can think, for example, that we'll live forever. This is a common misperception that we talked about last week. Us young people can think, oh, I'm not subject to aging, illness, and death, but we are. We can be deluded about that. As the sutra we talked about last week describes, you can be intoxicated to youth, to health, and to life. And that causes this kind of delusion where you think, oh, I'm just going to live forever. Death is something that happens to those other people. But that's not so. And even perceptions on a moment-to-moment level. We, for example, think that things are permanent when they're not. We look at the world and see permanent objects when in fact they're fluctuating, coming in and out of perception all of the time. And this is something we can be attuned to through mindfulness practice. When we misjudge what is happening in our perception, then that's a form of suffering. And when we stop misjudging these forms of perception, that is the cause for less suffering. So these are all about our own minds. We ourselves subject to these problems, to these poisons, but they ripple out into the whole world. When we are subject to these delusions, it impacts the people in our lives, the people around us, and we hurt them when we are subject to these delusions. And that unfortunately scales. It scales up. All of humanity is subject to these three poisons until you resolve them at the root through this practice. And that causes the kinds of systemic problems that we're seeing these days. There are tremendous problems that we're facing on this planet at this time as a civilization and as a species and as the whole world. And these problems all have a common root. There's global warming, there's nuclear weapons. Some people are very concerned about the risks of various technologies that can hurt us, like artificial intelligence and other things like this. Many, many problems. These are just a few of them, and they're the ones that we know about, but there are others as well. And all of these problems, which are sometimes called wicked problems, have one thing in common. They're all caused by humans. Humans are the problem. So often we blame other people for our problems when in fact we're the ones contributing to the situation. And the same is true on a species-wide level. There's no one to blame for these problems other than ourselves. It's not that we wanted these things to be the case. We didn't want to have these problems, but we are in fact responsible for them. We did cause them. And I would argue that these large, systemic, wicked problems, which are all caused by humans, are at root caused by these three poisons. When we ourselves have these poisons in our mind, those ripple out into the world. We perpetuate suffering, and if you combine these effects of suffering over many, many decades, centuries, the whole history of our species, that suffering can cause the enormous problems that we're seeing today. These forms of suffering, these poisons, compound over time across decades and centuries, and I believe they contribute to these large problems, if not entirely cause them. It's tricky, of course, because you're connecting symptoms of problems in individuals, problems in our own minds, with huge systemic problems that are on the scale of the whole planet, the whole civilization and all life on Earth. But if you look from poison to poison, you can see these connections. Hatred, for example. It's not an unreasonable thing to say that that is a cause of, say, nuclear weapons and other military technologies. It's not unreasonable to connect greed to global warming. Many people profit off of environmental imbalances. The way that we're operating our economy is a major contributing factor to global warming and other forms of environmental degradation. And the same is true for delusion. We're confused about these things and other things, and that ripples out and grows and compounds over time into the kinds of systemic problems that we're seeing now. So if this claim is true, that these three poisons are connected to the large systemic wicked problems that we're facing, then that's actually good news in some respect. Of course, we have to deal with these issues, these problems on a systemic level. We have to, for example, do things about the carbon in our atmosphere, or about the many nuclear weapons that we've created. We have to resolve those as symptoms of these problems. But the good news is that the root causes of these problems are in our own minds. We ourselves have greed in our minds. We ourselves have hate in our minds, and we ourselves have ignorance or delusion in our minds. And we can use those instances of greed, hatred, and delusion as a test bed for how to resolve suffering. Yeah, no, you should plug in the power. If these three poisons are in our mind, then we can resolve them. And that's what mindfulness practice is all about. When we try to focus on a focus space, for example, and we're distracted, we can look at those distractions in terms of the three poisons. It's not unrelated. These distractions that come up in our minds and take us away from the focus space are causes and effects of the three poisons. So when we learn to work with distraction, for example, that is a way that we can resolve these root causes within our own mind, and then the opposite effect happens. When we resolve suffering in our minds, then that positively impacts others around us. That leads to positive systemic change. The more clear we are, the more clear we can be in our lives. The more we are a cause for ending suffering, the more suffering we can end in the world. This is a revolutionary claim that by sitting here and doing these techniques, not only are we purifying these poisons from our own minds, but we're also purifying the world. This is not unrelated to the systemic issues that we face. Of course, don't mishear me. I'm very adamant that we need to solve systemic issues at that level. We need to remove nuclear weapons, for example, or remove carbon from the atmosphere. We need to have a good answer to what we're going to do about artificial intelligence. But these are basically symptoms of problems within our own minds. And when we resolve those problems, then we're getting at the root issue. We're solving the problem at the root level. It's not a complete solution, but it is necessary. It's necessary and it's beneficial. So this is the good news of mindfulness practice. Not only do you resolve your own suffering, not only is your own life improved so that you have more fulfillment and joy, but that also positively impacts the world. You yourself can be a cause for reducing the suffering that is present at this time, not only in your own mind, but in the lives of others around you, and even in the world at large. That is possible for us, and mindfulness enables and extends that possibility, making it available to everyone. It's very natural, for example, that as we notice suffering in our own lives and find that we can reduce it, and find that we can, in fact, increase our fulfillment through this mindfulness practice, that we see others are also suffering, and we feel for them. We have compassion rise up, bubble up, so that we care for others. And from that place, it's natural that we would want to help them, that we would give our lives, give our time, give our energy to striving to benefit others. This is a natural consequence of mindfulness practice, and it eats at one of these fundamental delusions that our culture and even our species perpetuates, which is, in my opinion, individualism. We look around and see individual beings, and we sometimes think that that's a good way to see the world, that it's of benefit. But in fact, we're deeply connected. We're deeply connected to the others around us, to our environment, to the whole world. And when we ignore those connections, that is itself suffering. It's suffering for us and it's suffering for others. And mindfulness allows us to see that it's not so simple as I am an individual over here and you are an individual over there. We see that we are deeply connected to others, and from that place, of course, when we resolve suffering in our own minds, that ripples out into the world. In many ways, it's a cause for many forms of benefit throughout time. So it's good to be motivated by our own desire to reduce stress and anxiety, for example. That's very wholesome. It's a good reason to practice meditation, and you should definitely do that when you practice meditation. Definitely reduce your stress and decrease the suffering that you experience. That is a real benefit, and it's a good reason to practice mindfulness. And yet at the same time, we can feel bolstered by knowing that this practice benefits more than just us. It benefits those around us, and I would argue it benefits the world at large. This is excellent news. It benefits me, it benefits you, it benefits the whole planet when we practice mindfulness. So with that in context, we'll have a chance to actually practice this, actually practice mindfulness, so that we can look closely at distraction, look closely at these three poisons, resolve our suffering, and of course we'll have a chance to take that out into the world in our own lives, having practiced mindfulness for some time together. So we'll take a short break to stretch our bodies or get any water, or use the restroom, and we'll be back in about 3 minutes. That's 2:46 Pacific and 5, let's say 5:47, 2:47 for Eastern and Pacific, respectively. Take a moment to straighten up, allowing your spine to become upright, and relax, dropping any muscular tension that may be present at this time. And once again, bring awareness into your body. Feel your body. Become curious about what's happening for you and your body right now. And as you attend to your body, allow your mind, your thinking mind, to participate. Use your thinking to describe what you're finding as you pay attention to your body. Rather than simply trying to quiet down or push away your mind, your thinking process, recruit your thinking in the meditation. Noticing what's happening in your body and narrating with your thinking mind what's happening. It might sound something like this. I notice my legs are itchy, and I'm warm. There's a pulsing feeling in my hands. It's in my arms now. There's an itch at the top of my head. Stay with your body, allowing bodily awareness to increase, and use your mind to narrate what's happening in your body. For the purposes of this exercise, the focus space is your body and any thinking about your body. And distraction is any thinking that's not about your body. Be sure that you can hear thoughts about your body and your mind. Of course, they can be at whatever pace or rhythm you like. But as you sustain awareness on your body, use your thinking to describe what's present. narrating what's happening in your body can help you to focus on your body, increasing concentration power. And it can also increase your clarity about what's actually happening from moment to moment in your body. With increased focus and clarity, it's natural that we would have more and more curiosity. Wow, there's a whole region of my body I can't feel right now. Never noticed that before. Oh, there's this interesting pulsing in my legs. What's that about? Use the bodily awareness and the thinking to increase your curiosity. Become curious about what's happening in your body. Feel your body from moment to moment. And use the thinking to stay with that. Use the thinking as a tool to stay with your body experience. Use the thinking and the increased body awareness to become more and more curious about what's actually happening in your body. Rather than pushing away thinking, use thinking, narration, to focus on your body. Moment after moment, attend to your body and describe what's present for you. Very good. Now, without losing the increased body awareness that you've cultivated and the curiosity that comes along with that, drop the thinking and the narration. Continue to be aware of your body. And as you do that, bring particular focus to the breathing sensations at the abdomen. Feel what it's like for you to breathe right now. While still having an awareness of your whole body. Allow yourself to notice the breathing sensations at the abdomen from moment to moment, while still being in contact with your whole bodily experience. Allow it to be a kind of balancing act, focusing closely on the breathing at the abdomen, while maintaining a connection to and awareness of your whole body. Without becoming too myopically focused on the breath or too distracted by your whole body. See if you can balance the two evenly. Close attention to the breathing at the abdomen with a large expansive awareness of your whole body. Stay with this balancing act from moment to moment. Noticing the breathing sensations of the abdomen and maintaining awareness of the whole body. If you become distracted, pulled away into thinking, then simply notice that and gently return. And as you maintain this balancing act, notice if there's any quality or flavor of fulfillment. Perhaps there's satisfaction or curiosity. Perhaps there are pleasant parts of your body. Pleasant tingles. If there's any fulfillment in your experience of attending to this focus space, notice that and savor it. It's okay to enjoy meditation. Continue to stay with the breathing sensations from moment to moment, while maintaining awareness of your whole body. But as you do that, look for and enjoy any qualities of fulfillment. Even a small amount of fulfillment. Notice that and enjoy it. Great work, everyone. Wonderful to be practicing with you. This is a time to share as a community. If you have any reports about what your meditation experience was like, or you have any questions about the talk or the meditation or an experience you had, or anything at all, feel free to share that with the group. This is your time.
I hesitate to suggest I may speak for the whole group here in saying that at least my experience is such that I'm reluctant to come back. It was very pleasant. Yeah. I am experiencing a lot of flow in the body. There's some sort of even maybe neuropathic sorts of nerve jolts that become pleasant, just expand into sort of that pleasant field, holding the whole body. There are sensations of just being supported in this big jelly thing that is all around and all through. And yeah, the idea of narrating the physical experience, I found myself reluctant to make sentences. I was like, leg, move, just sort of labeling in sort of these monosyllabic things. But yes, it was a very enjoyable experience. So just breaking the silence with that. And thank you, Tasshin.
Wonderful report, Renee. I'm so glad you enjoyed it and found this flowing energy in your body and in the world. And certainly my experience with putting awareness here in the abdominal area and then maintaining awareness of the whole body, that can be a real generator for flow and energy and pleasant vibratory tingly sensations. And I'm glad to see that you found those. It's a really nice way to enjoy this practice, is to get that fire started and keep yourself warm with it. Warm yourself by the fire of pleasant, bubbly, vibratory sensations in your whole body. It's very nice. That works pretty reliably for me, and that may not have been everyone's experience here, but I'm glad that you at least found that. As far as the whole narration bit, thought a little context might be helpful. I was reflecting earlier this week that I had a conversation with a friend of mine about a decade ago now, where we were talking about our meditation practices. And she told me at the time that when she meditates, she likes to do this. She likes to think about what's happening for her and narrate what's happening. And for her, I'm very confident it was in great detail. And I remember at the time, you know, I just started meditating, so that meant that I thought I knew everything. You know, I was like 19 or 20 at the time, and I was like, I know all about this. I got this covered. Totally down. Basically the world's greatest meditator. And you know, a little bit of delusion and hatred there. Anyway, I thought that her report was kind of silly. I was like, what are you doing narrating your experience? That sounds silly. That sounds like you're not really meditating. I've got this whole meditation thing down, but you don't, and you need to learn from me. I didn't say that, of course. I wasn't that arrogant at the time, but I thought it. In any case, I sort of wish I had taken the hint from her. You know, that was a time I was in college and I was reading quite a bit, writing quite a bit. All of my classes were discussion based. So, you know, I spent a lot of time in my head. And so meditating was actually quite difficult, whether I knew it or not at the time. And it also was not, you know, particularly enjoyable at the time, certainly not in the way that you just described, which is more common for me now. And I think that that would have been a very skillful thing for me to do at that time in my meditation practice, is just get curious. What's actually happening here? Well, I notice I'm itchy and tired and, you know, whatever else was happening, to get curious about it by describing, using this narrative thinking and voice. I think that that would have been a very useful technique for me at the time, because I was spending a lot of time in my head, and this surprisingly can be an excellent way to get into the body, just by using the thinking to reflect on what's happening in the body rather than having it be pulled in two different directions. You can at least use the thinking to go towards the body. Instead of thinking about, you know, what I'm going to do this weekend and whether I like this person or not, you can at least use the thinking to say like, oh yeah, there's itching and I'm sleepy, and there's this bubbly sensation, wonder what that's all about, and I got distracted there, that was interesting, now I'm back. At least it's pushing in the direction of the meditation instead of pulling in an opposite direction. And it's very common that when we sit down to practice, no matter how much experience we have, that our mind is in this sort of scattered, pull in lots of different directions sort of place. And so this can be a way to make use of thinking, that tendency towards thinking, and bring it into the meditation as a way to begin focusing. You can sort of bootstrap concentration and focus by using that tendency to think in that direction. So I hope that's useful to everyone, and certainly a different approach, but might be a useful tool to have in your toolkit.
I thought it was, one of the prompts was the most interesting and useful for me with this was recruit your mind to do this, to narrate, to participate in this. And, you know, I mean, I was thinking, put that thing to good use, and you said recruit, and I thought, oh, that's so nice. It was great.
Yeah, I'm glad you resonated with that. The mind has plans of its own, and you can persuade and coax it to come along. And this attitude of curiosity can be very helpful. You know, you can use questions and an investigative attitude to become curious. I mean, something that I get curious about a lot is how different things that I'm noticing relate to each other. So, for example, am I concentrated or am I distracted? Am I awake or am I sleepy? Is it pleasant in my body or is it unpleasant? Is there this energy you describe or is there not? Any one of those is kind of interesting on its own, but if you put them next to each other, it's like, oh, I notice when my energy goes up, I'm less sleepy and my body feels better and I'm more focused. That's fascinating to notice. And then the energy went down, so I'm enjoying it less and I'm sleepy again and I'm less focused. There's sort of relationships between these variables that you can start to notice. That's very interesting. And it's a legitimate way to explore, to use the mind and use the thinking to become curious in this way.
I really enjoyed kind of the call to uh, focus on the whole body. And I found as I was practicing that, the first 15 minutes I was like kind of struggling and I'm like, oh, I'm itchy and oh, there's noise outside. And then you kind of had this call to like, if there's anything that, if there's fulfillment to kind of follow that. And I asked myself, I was like, wow, well, what would a fulfilling experience feel like? And all of a sudden there was this like, well, I've always wanted to know what it was like to sit inside of a water lily. And, and I just went with that. And it was like, oh, it's so soft and it smells so good and the water is so nice. And all of a sudden it was like having that whole experience of the body and also breathing and just the balancing the body with the breath. There was such a sense of peace in that, and like rejuvenation and restoration. And I've been really allowing myself to receive those things and those experiences, and recognizing how available they are to us. And so I really just appreciated getting to experience that and in this moment.
It's a wonderful report as well. It's Hannah?
Yes.
Well, great report, Hannah. I'm glad that you were curious and playful in the way that you heard the instructions. I love the water lily image and you finding fulfillment in that way. So great work with that. And, at least in my experience, most of the time when we are meditating or just having these bodies that we have, there's some parts of our experience that's unpleasant, something that's unpleasant, some parts that are neutral, and some parts that are pleasant. That's just kind of part of the deal. There's going to be some of each of these things in our experience somewhere. It might not be particularly unpleasant. It might not be particularly joyful, but those things are there. Unfortunately, one of these tendencies of mind that causes us suffering is we subconsciously or consciously sort of over-focus on the parts that are unpleasant. It's like, oh man, right now my left ankle hurts because it's been up in this pose. And like, it's easy to just zoom in on that. And like, oh man, my ankle hurts. Or there's these itches in my body and it's kind of warm here. Oh no, it's terrible. It's not even that bad, but then the mind can easily like get myopic about it. But in fact, there are neutral parts of the body and pleasant parts of the body as well. Most of the time, maybe not all of the time, but most of the time there's at least something that's even a little bit pleasant, right? Like this warmth that I'm finding in my body right now, it's quite warm here today. Even though it's partially unpleasant, it's also kind of nice. It's like sort of womb-like or something. It's like holding us here in the warmth, and that's, partly unpleasant, but it's partly kind of nice actually. And so with meditation, you can become attuned to even these small bits of pleasure, even just a little bit of pleasure, and then your fulfillment based on those small bits of pleasure can increase even exponentially. So you can notice just a little bit of like vibration or warmth or pleasant sensations, but the way that you focus on that can cause your fulfillment from it to increase dramatically, and that can actually cause the pleasure itself to increase. And you can sort of shift this tendency of mind to focus on negative, unpleasant, uncomfortable experiences to the opposite thing of noticing fulfilling, pleasant, enjoyable sensations, and that can cascade over time. So you're just walking around in the world, and instead of noticing how you're itching and hurting, which you still have mindfulness of, but you're just like, wow, there's all these vibratory, flowing, bubbly sensations in my body. This is amazing. It's carrying me as I walk through the world, and your mind can become increasingly attuned to that. So on the one hand, you can kind of come to terms with, notice unpleasant sensations and have equanimity with those, but you can also enjoy these fulfilling, pleasant sensations more and more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that really resonates. It reminds me of that, like the kind of the saying that when you understand beauty, you see it everywhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is one way to look at meditation, which is just you're shifting this tendency of mind from focusing on these negative things to focusing on even small amounts of pleasure, attuning your mind to that. And you can sort of look at it like, how much pleasure and joy can I possibly feel while sitting still here? I'm sitting still. Of course, there's going to be some discomfort, but can I radically transform my mind to feel more and more and more pleasure? As far as I can tell, there's not really a limit. You can just keep increasing how much pleasure and joy and fulfillment you find. It just goes up and up and up. So I can read it just a second. You don't need to read it. It's okay. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah, different regions of the body definitely have more and more pleasure. Often the arms or the feet, as you say, or different parts of the body, you can learn to find these pleasant or bubbly or vibratory sensations of different kinds. And probably it's different for different people, which parts tend to have them and which parts are unpleasant, as you say. But you want to kind of learn over time what works for you, where you can find these sensations and become more and more attuned to them. And it can be a little bit like, you know, a tuning fork, you like hit it and it makes a sound, and that's useful for tuning your instruments and so on. It can be a bit like that, where say you happen to feel these bubbly sensations in your feet or your arms, for example, then as you focus more and more on that, if you maintain this whole body awareness, if you have this whole body awareness as you focus on, say, bubbly sensations in your left arm or something like that, then that can be like a tuning fork for you to find similar sensations in other parts of the body that you hadn't already noticed. Like it almost like summons, like, oh wow, it's over there too, and it's over here, and it's over here, and then it grows and it grows, and both the pleasure itself, the sensations that are pleasant can grow, as well as your enjoyment and fulfillment of them. And maintaining this whole body awareness is very useful for finding that and increasing that feedback loop. Yeah, Alice. Oh, let's just switch the mic.
So some observations, which might or may not lead to a question about ignorance. So like, I was noticing how this, how the meditation is related to the talk, and I can see, it's you know, pretty easily that, yeah, this like meditation really helps with, say, with overcoming greed. Like if I can feel fulfillment and pleasure within my own body, then I don't feel as much the need to like search for it like outside of myself. And then with hatred, same thing. Like if I can find joy and peace like within, then I don't feel like I have less reason to feel angry about the world. I guess ignorance have found to be a little more confusing. It seems, like I can see that, okay, you know, I'm getting clarity on like my present experience. So I have like, I guess I have less ignorance of that. Whereas it's not like, I guess maybe that's what ignorance has always been referring to. Whereas like ignorance also means to me something like, you know, knowing, like being worldly or knowing about the world. And as I'm sitting here like meditating, I'm not reading a book about world history or something. So I guess it doesn't seem like it, it doesn't help with that kind of ignorance. But are the two kinds of ignorance related, or is like maybe even the second kind of ignorance like not as like problematic, or not problematic at all, like, you know, from I guess from, you know, the Buddhist perspective?
So you're wondering about how the meditation relates to the talk about the three poisons, and in particular, while you can connect what we did to greed and hatred, it's hard to see how it's related to ignorance or delusion, and that's sort of the starting point for this.
I can see, yeah, I mean, I think I can see, like, yeah, a little bit, you know, there's some, I can see maybe a little bit of it, but some parts that I'm also feeling like confused.
And what are the two kinds of ignorance that you're referring to?
Yeah, it's, you know, it seems like maybe when you say ignorance or delusion, it means like not knowing the present, what my present experience really is. But then I guess like the more like another definition of ignorance is like, is just like, oh, I don't know something about the world, or I don't, or I just, there's a piece of knowledge I don't have, or I do wonder if like when you speak of ignorance, if you're maybe referring just to the first definition or something.
So delusion is referring to the first kind of ignorance that you're talking about. It's not referring to lack of knowledge about a particular fact or something like this. One of the central axioms of Buddhism, and I would argue spiritual practice more largely, is the claim that in our own direct experience, we can come to know the world. That it's possible to have direct experience of knowledge about reality that doesn't come from a mediated form like a textbook or a teacher or some course or something like this, even from like say rational knowledge, that there's this sort of experiential first person, you could say phenomenological, direct experiential knowledge of what reality is. And then the claim with delusion is that most of the time there are various kinds of perceptual confusions, misunderstandings, biases, whatever you want to call it, that make us confused about what's actually happening in our experience from moment to moment, or just in this life, in this nature, what it means to be alive, things like this. And so this goes all the way down, just all the way down. But one example of that is what we were talking about with Hannah, that we tend to notice, like sort of over-index on negative sensations when there are also, for example, pleasant sensations that we may not be attuned to most of that time. If that's true, then that is a form of delusion. We forget about the pleasant sensations that are present and over-focus on, get myopic about these negative sensations. That's just one example. There are other forms as well. I mean, one maybe useful way to look at it is through the three characteristics, which are impermanence, no self, and dukkha, or suffering. And on a perceptual level, we tend to believe that the opposite of these three characteristics are true, that there is permanence, that there is a self, and that there is not suffering. This is something you can investigate for yourself. For example, just to give, this is just a banal sort of hand-wavy example, but like, say you're in a room, which we are right now, and you're looking around, and I don't know, there's like a fan over there, and I look at the fan, and it's easy to think, oh, that's just a permanent fan that's always there. But in fact, I'm moving my eyesight from you to that, from you to that, and it's changing. It's changing as I do that. My perception of it is changing. So there's actually this like vibration, this change, arising and passing, ebbing and flowing, that's part of perception. All perceptual phenomena have this sort of in and out, back and forth, up and down, increase, decrease tendency. The same is true with self. Of course, we have like mental talk and mental images and feelings in our body, but we tend to sort of coagulate those into a sense of self, when in fact, from moment to moment, there's a thought, and then there's an image, and then there's a feeling in my body, and then there's a thought, and then a feeling, and it can happen. There can be a lot of that. It can be very fast. Our sense of it can kind of blur together, but you can also break it down into noticing, oh, there's just a sentence that's a sound in my head. Oh, there's just an image that just colors in my mind. It's not myself, it's just things coming and going in the internal subjective experience. If we think these are permanent selves, that's delusion, according to Buddhism. Yeah, as I say, this sort of goes up and down the stack, so it's characteristic of our experience and our minds. It's not so much a particular claim as a tendency of mind and our experience. So it's something that you can continue to investigate for yourself. Like, how might delusion be present for me right now? Is there anything I could be clearer about? And that can guide your practice and what you look for.
Sorry, could you repeat the first part again? Something like, not the before it was not a tendency of the mind.
Yeah, I'll just repeat the whole thing to kind of hopefully be a little clearer. Greed, hatred, and delusion are tendencies of mind that affect, if they're present, that's the claim in Buddhism, then they affect everything that we do. And so you can kind of look around for them and find different forms of them. I'm giving specific examples that might help sort of justify it to you and help you like kind of see, oh, this might be a thing. But ultimately you have to find it for yourself, and there's a lot of places to look, like where there might be delusion, for example, or greed or hatred. And it's not just one specific form of it, it's a general tendency of mind. Any last comments or questions?
Yeah, I could say something about delusion and ignorance. That's a thing that I actually stumbled upon this week at the monastery. And there's I have a delusion about something, and I've decided I know what it is about. I know the fact of what has happened. I am no longer able to send a text message to somebody. So the story I have is that person has blocked me. And another thing could be that there's a setting in my phone that changed with the last update, but that does not occur to me. And so my delusion about that person has blocked me has just moved right in there and made me ignorant of another possibility. It's kind of how I work with that idea, that sort of delusion, ignorance, how do those go together? And there's, there's then the other kind of ignorance that is, you don't know enough about the Greek classics and maybe you should go and read those, but that's not what we're referring to here, although it's valid.
I mean, I like the Greek classics. I've been known to enjoy them, and mindfulness is excellent, has many benefits, as we've seen. I love that example, Renee. It's a very good one, and it sort of helps you see as well how these things might perpetuate. You might send an angry message or letter or phone call to your friend or something when in fact they just accidentally pushed block, or your settings on your phone changed, or there was a glitch or something. And then that these things do perpetuate in relationships with others, and certainly at higher levels as well. Very good. Well, it was wonderful to be with you all today. Thank you for joining us and for being part of this community. We're very grateful to be connected to you. And thank you all for practicing together.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Tasshin.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Just wonderful.
Thank you, Tasshin.
And thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Tasshin.
I think it keeps getting better and better.
What a great Sangha. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you. I'm actually Christine, but I'm using my granddaughter's link. I don't know why it happened, but I'm Christine. Thank you so much. It was fabulous again, and I look forward to my Saturdays like it's a date that was better than any other date. Maybe it's how old I am, I don't know, but it's a great date for Saturday afternoon. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much,
Bye-bye.
Tasshin. Talk to you soon.
Bye, Elliot.